This video is going to be about how super easy it is to create 3D flower blooms using resin inks and alcohol inks by Octopus Fluids. These are some of the deepest color inks you can find out there, and I'm going to show you the difference between two of them by doing a pour side by side. For the alcohol inks, I'm going to be using Plum and Lagoon, and for the resin inks, I'm going to be using Marigold, Smurf, and Sweet Cherry. I'm also using Castin as my white pigment paste. I mixed up 7 ounces of magic resin, tabletop, and art resin, and I'm waiting till 32 to 33 degrees to pour it into my molds. And those are just some basic geode molds I had laying around. I wanted something that was similar so the comparisons would be similar. I am using, I did split it between two, so each mold got 3 ounces of resin, and I kept out 1 ounce for the white that I'm going to be doing 3 drops of the casting craft in, 1 drop for every 10 mil. That's usually the ratio. That's the ratio to use if you don't want your whites too heavy or too light. So I finished pouring the 3 ounces in each mold, and I'm just using a little bit of a heat gun there to get rid of some bubbles and tapping the sides to release any problematic bubbles that might be there. I also have some gold glass glitter that I'm just putting in the centers to give it a little bit of a nice finished look. I have that glass glitter sitting in a little bit of resin because it keeps it together when you're putting it into the mold so it doesn't go floating off on its own. And putting more glitter in. Now it's time to start dropping the inks. The resin inks are going to be on the left-hand side, and I'm starting with the Marigold, just dropping tiny drops as I move around the center of the glass glitter. And I used 3 colors of resin inks and only 2 on the alcohol inks because I didn't have a light color like the yellow to use of the alcohol inks. But as you'll see, these resin inks by Octopus Fluids are 5 times more concentrated than the regular alcohol inks. And the regular alcohol inks are much more concentrated than just alcohol inks you can buy on Amazon, which just tend to dissipate in the resin. The reason for keeping or starting the resin at like 32 to 33 degrees, as you'll see here, the colors are holding. They're not floating off to the edges or floating off to the center. They're kind of keeping where I dropped them. So now I'm on the alcohol ink side, starting with the Plum, which is a purple color. And I believe, because I knew these were less concentrated, I go in there and do a second drop of color on top of the first. I only did 1 drop of color with the resin inks. And this is the Lagoon. It's a blue color, obviously. I wish I would have had a yellow or an orange to put on this side, but I figured these 2 colors would go well together. And I do go back around and drop a second color. I knew that these colors would break up a bit more than the resin inks, so having the double dose of color seemed to be a good idea. But as you see, these are just sitting there, and the resin inks on the left really haven't moved at all. It's funny, this was only the 2nd or 3rd time I'd done blooms, and I did this video back in June of 2024, only getting around to posting it now. But I don't know why I didn't mix my white up ahead of time because the resin was already at like 32 to 33 degrees Celsius. But as you see here, I've got it in a piping bag, and I'm just drawing circles, starting from the center and going out. No crazy curlicues like I do in my more recent videos. You see the alcohol inks on the right? They've started to blend together, although they're not dissipating and separating. The blue's staying together and the purple is staying together as well. I didn't want to go crazy with this white because at this point I didn't know how much white was good and how much was bad. Then to create your flower bloom, you just take a silicone pen or a dotting tool, and you're drawing lines from the outside in from 12 o'clock to the center, 6 o'clock to the center, 9 o'clock to the center, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I never know my times there, 7 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock. And then if you want to complete the flower, you draw outwards from the center to the outside in between those flower petals you've created, as you see I'm doing right there. It is dragging a little bit of the red out towards the blue. One thing I noticed too is the marigold is keeping its shape in the center there, staying centered, where it looks on the alcohol ink side, it's kind of moving or shifting over to the right. And again, 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, 9 and 3, 2, 7, 11, and 5. Wouldn't it be funny if I was saying the wrong numbers? And here, going from the inside out through those flowers that I just created, and you can definitely see that that pattern is shifting up towards the right-hand side. I can only guess or assume that this is because the alcohol inks are lighter and they're traveling, where the resin inks have a heavier ink content and they are tending to stay put. Also, the magic resin being a tabletop resin, it's a very higher viscosity. It's very thick, so that also holds the colors in there when it's warmed up. Now for the backs, I'm just finishing them off with some black pigment paste. That was from HTVront. I think I only mixed up maybe 2 ounces of resin, not a lot. And it only takes about a drop or 2 of pigment paste to color that. And I knew these weren't going to be sold or anything, so I didn't really have to be perfect, just enough to cover up the back. I'm just using the tool to drag it into the edges so I don't have to add a lot more and overfill it. Now it's time to demold. I believe this is the alcohol inks that I'm doing first. Love those little geode shapes. That looks awesome. See how we lost the purple on the bottom right-hand side though? It tended to shift up to the left. It's pretty though. I was surprised that I got such great petals out of that. And this is the resin inks. Oh my gosh, how beautiful is that? We got purples in there and the yellow turned a greenish color. It's amazing. As you see, the resin inks on the left are much darker than the alcohol inks on the right, but I still like the patterns. It's flowers, and I don't like white flowers. I really love these colors. We hope this video lets you create some great 3D flower blooms of your own.